very warm welcome again to all of you to our 31st CME on evidence-based nutrition. And like for every good thing, we always invoke the Lord first for His blessings. So I invite Miss Ila Pathak to pray to the Lord for us so that we start on an auspicious note. Miss Ila is our council member and she is a master's in dietetics and nutrition, and Sugam Sangeet is her passion. Welcome, Ila.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Ya Kundendu Tushar Har Dhavala Ya Shubhra Vastrandvita Ya Veena Varadanda Mandita Kara Ya Shveta Padmasana Ya Brahma Chuta Shankara Prabhatibhi Devai Sada Pujita Samam Patu Saraswati Bhagavati Nishesha Jadapaha.
Thank you so much, Ila. So with now, we go ahead for the inauguration of our conference. I would invite Ms. Rinki Singh, who's the Executive Director at Pan India, to please come near the dais. Dr. Rupa Shah, Madam, please come. She's the chairperson at Mumbai chapter of Pan India. I would invite Dr. Ram, sir. He is on the board of directors for Pan India Mumbai chapter. And Dr. Anand Kumta and Dr. Kiran Kulkarni, who are our advisors. And last but not the least, the one who is very, very instrumental for today's conference is Dr. Deepak Patkar, sir. Sir, please. He is our Director Medical Services at Nanavati Max Super Speciality Hospital. So I welcome all of you here and I request all of you to please water the plant so that in typical Pan tradition, we can inaugurate the conference. We believe in being eco-friendly and we want to conserve our health as well as planetary health. So in keeping with this tradition, we want to, as a token, offer water to the plant. Start with the conference now. A quick introduction to all of you about Pan India. PAN is Physicians Association for Nutrition, and we endeavor to educate, empower, and engage the doctors. Our mission is to empower doctors with evidence-based nutrition so that they use that as a first line of treatment along with our medications for our patients so that we improve personal health as well as we have an impact on planetary health. PAN is a global non-profit organization which is headquartered in Germany, and in India we have started operations since 2022, and we are a growing network of over 10,000 doctors and healthcare professionals, and this is the 31st CME, so we have conducted over 30 CMEs all over India, and we are supported by a scientific advisory council, a medical advisory council, ambassadors across India, as well as a dedicated team of part-time consultants. So what does PAN do? We want to integrate evidence-based nutrition into healthcare. So we are training practicing physicians and specialists. We want to develop tools and resources which will be relevant for us in our day-to-day practice, and also integrate evidence-based nutrition in the medical curriculum so that we train future doctors as well. So we also want to be part of, and we have already started on that path of being part of policy advisory as part of industry guidance and partnership and collaborations which will ultimately impact the food system in a better way so that we have a healthier and sustainable food system which translates to healthier families, healthier communities, and healthier ecosystem at large. We also have work with research to advance the field of evidence-based nutrition. This is the medical team for Pan India. We are also helped by an executive and program management team. This is the Medical Advisory Council, where Dr. Sharang and Dr. Rupa Madam are here with us today. This is the team for online content development. Pan India has conducted, and these are snippets of a few recent CMEs which we conducted in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Delhi, Pune, and AIIMS, Nagpur. Our online programs are also quite useful. We have webinars once every month for discussing relevant topics with clinicians as well as doctors. Journal clubs are also there to kind of discuss newer research which keeps coming in the field of nutrition so that we can analyze it better and learn from it. And we also have discussion forums where doctors can come together and discuss with experts about topics relevant to nutrition and how to include it in our patient care. Pan India has also started city chapters now. So we have one in Bangalore, Mumbai, and Hyderabad. And this is the Mumbai city chapter team. We have our chairperson and a group of directors along with advisors, and we have a council as well. So how can you as doctors associate with Pan India? So if you're already practicing evidence-based nutrition in your work, you're practicing as a personal health practice, then you can definitely join us and kind of help guide other doctors as PAN ambassadors. You can become PAN consultants who can help spread the word of evidence-based nutrition further. You can become PAN volunteers if you are part of the medical student fraternity and help evidence-based nutrition in that way. You can also be part of the physicians network where we update regularly on social media, on WhatsApp groups and via email so that we spread newest research and newest changes that are there in the field of evidence-based nutrition. And finally, medical student network also where you can join Pan India. Thank you. Now with this, we come to today's topic, that is evidence-based nutrition intervention in clinical practice. And why we are focusing so much on evidence-based nutrition. So looking at this chart, you can see these two pies where 1990 and 2016, there is a definite shift in the disease burden in India. Initially, the communicable diseases were a lot, and now we have non-communicable diseases which are taking precedence. We are seeing a rapid increase in non-communicable and lifestyle-related diseases. So this is data from 2019 from the World Health data. 33% have died from heart diseases, 18% cancers. There are digestive disorders. Diabetes is fast coming up, and India is unfortunately slated to become the next diabetes capital. So what is this paradigm shift attributed to? Why is this happening? So if we look at this pie chart, almost 20% of the causes are attributable to nutrition, and even more than high blood pressure, tobacco, and other health risks combined. So somewhere what we are eating is definitely not keeping us healthy. And that is because of the advent of fast food, because of a lot of fried and sweet things that we see rampant these days, and these are very, very addictive. We see a change in culture, shopping malls, departmental stores, and a lot of attractive cartons and packagings which kind of invite us to pick them up, and it is convenience also in this fast-paced world. And we are seeing a lot of processed foods in our life. So what are processed foods? These are foods from which something beneficial is removed or from which something not so beneficial is added. And these are on a spectrum of processing. So from minimally processed, we go ahead to see ultra processed. So this is a classification, NOVA classification, which is a very beautiful illustration of the spectrum of processing. So group 1 is unprocessed or minimally processed foods, which we need to focus more on. And these are fresh or dried or frozen fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, plant seeds. Group 2 are culinary processed ingredients. So we need to use less of them. A little is allowed, as less as possible. So these are oils, sugars, jaggery, honey, etc. Group 3 is processed foods, which are further processed in our kitchen. So these are canned and frozen and preserved foods basically. But we need to kind of reduce the usage of these as well and try to seek fresh produce as much as possible. And finally, the culprit group 4 is the ultra processed foods, which are the sugar sweetened beverages, the biscuits, the crisps, the noodles, the ready-to-eat frozen meals, the instant soups, and whatnot. So these ultra-processed foods have become a multi-billion-dollar industry now, and they are convenience and commerce-driven. They are not health-driven at all. They are hyper-palatable, they are addictive in nature, and they contain high fat, sugar, and salt, that so-called HFSS foods that we know. And they have a lot of health concerns. So in trying to make a food low fat, they want to mimic that fat taste in the mouth, and hence they would add some non-food artificial agents to mimic that mouth feel. And all these are ultimately going to be harmful for our health. So these are emulsifiers and stabilizers, thickening and gelling agents, preservatives, acidity regulators, sweeteners, flavors, colors, and the list goes on. But what are the dangers of these ultra-processed foods? A host of dangers, but the most important is that they alter the gut microbiome, and our gut microbiome is connected and related to each part of our health. And these foods are calorically dense. They give us a lot of empty calories, and they are nutritionally barren. They do not have much nutritional content, but a lot of calories, which leads to overweight, obesity, and not just that, it also leads to a lot of diseases, including cardiovascular diseases, cancers, metabolic diseases, fatty liver, and a lot of mental conditions as well. Looking at this slide, if you can see, this is mortality rate attributable to diet. And we can at the top see excess sodium, which is causing a lot of mortality across the globe, followed by less whole grains, less fruits, less nuts and vegetables, less omega-3. So we can see that a lot of things we need to increase so as to counter this increasing spate of non-communicable diseases. We need to increase the plant quotient of our food, because we can only introduce a lot of variety in our food through plants. So what should we be exactly eating? This is a pictorial depiction of the power plate. This shows that 50% of our plate should be vegetables and fruits for every meal. And we need to actually retrospect and see how many of us are actually managing to get that much vegetable intake in our day-to-day eating pattern. So 1/4 should be grains and 1/4 should be legumes, and these should be as colorful as possible with a host of natural antioxidants and phytonutrients, which are ultimately going to be calorie rare and nutrient dense. We want more nutrition for our body, and which is going to keep all the lifestyle diseases at bay. So look at this beautiful rainbow. We need to aim at eating the rainbow and include a variety of whole foods, whole plant foods into our daily diet. This saying, which is attributed to Hippocrates, says, "Let food be thy medicine." So we literally need to look at our food as something which can cure us, which can transform us. And once we have this experience personally, we can translate this to our patients as well and be responsible for a healthier society at large. These are a few pictures of my culinary experiments I keep doing in my kitchen. And I try to bring as much color as possible, and so do all the panelists and the speakers today, because we passionately feel we need to kind of improve the plant quotient and educate and sensitize doctors so that you can transform the benefit to your patients. With this, I end my talk. Thank you so much. And we start the CME in proper today, I'll invite Dr. Manali Rao. Dr. Manali is a practicing general practitioner and diabetologist, practicing since more than 7 years, and she is passionate about including lifestyle modification along with the medications in her patient care. She is a trained yoga and professional Bharatnatyam dancer, and she is one of the board of directors for Pan India Mumbai chapter. Welcome, Dr. Manali.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to take the pleasure to introduce our esteemed speakers today. Dr. Smriti Naswa. She is a consultant dermatologist in Fortis Hospital, Mulund. She is passionate about lifestyle medicine and has been including the same in her practice for over 6 years. She is one of the board of directors of PAN. Dr. Ajay Prabhu. He is Dr. Ajay Prabhu, he is MS in pathology. He is also included a lot of research in his practice. He's one of the members of our committee for PAN, and he's one of the advisors for us. Dr. Sharang Vartikar, he's an ophthalmologist. He is very keen and always practicing and translating the same about importance of evidence-based nutrition to his patients. He's a fitness enthusiast and an animal lover, following and advocating a whole food plant-based diet for improved fitness. Dr. Anuja Pete, she is a pediatrician consultant in Nanavati Hospital. She leads parenting workshops. She conducts workshops for newborn care, lactation, and mother's nutrition. She's passionate about creating plant-based diets and is applying the same in her practice. She's also one of the board members for PAN. Dr. Ram Subramaniam, he is also a pediatrician. He is one of the board of directors of PAN, and he has been practicing pediatric homeopathy, holistic health and nutrition in the last couple of years of his practice. Now I request Dr. Sharang to come and discuss about the survey that we had taken. Thank you.
So before we start with the main talks, there was this survey that we had done on the WhatsApp group about a little bit of biometrics and things like that. So there were some interesting results, and I thought we can just start with that first before we move on to the other things. So the question is, how healthy are we, as physicians ourselves? And this was just a simple analysis which was done on the WhatsApp survey. We got around 80 responses, which is pretty good. Pretty much male-female ratio was equal. The average age was around 46, range being 22 to 75 years. And 27% of us are on medications for something or the other. 63% are disease-free, which is very good. But when you look at the biometrics, if you look at BMI, the world criteria is, 25 plus you call overweight, and obese is more than 30. However, for Asia Pacific and India, we have a special condition known as the thin fat, and which is why the levels are different. About 23 BMI is considered overweight, and about 25 is considered to be obese. So in our group survey, we found the average BMI to be 25.2. So we are all together are, already on the obese side, right? Range being 18 to 39. The other important, of course, BMI is not everything. A single biometric cannot decide what the health is. So we have to use different things. Waist to height ratio is very important. And as you can see, there are different values given here and different classification, different for males and females. The males in our group were all overweight. The females have to do a little better because they are extremely overweight. So we need to work a little bit more. The other interesting, that's like basically just 26% fell in the healthy category. So that's something we need to work upon. Now, when I asked about, exercises, 26% were not doing any exercise at all, okay? The others were doing cardio and things like that, which is good. But how much of exercises were they doing? And this is where I had asked you. One was to estimate what, according to you, is your level of exercise, whether you're inactive, lightly active, whatever, and how much actually you're doing. Now, this physical activity level is actually a defined thing with specific, levels which are there. And if you see, according to the poll, nobody said they were extremely inactive. lightly active 22%, moderately active 68%, and vigorously active 8%. Nobody believed they are extremely active. But the actual meaning of these terms, if you go to see, what is extremely inactive is somebody who does no daily exercise at all, okay? And that comes to 41% of ours are from the survey. Why is that so? Because the next level, lightly active, is only if you are walking like 3 kilometers every day. So 41% of us are not doing that. We are not walking. So although we believe none of us is extremely inactive, 41% by definition are actually extremely inactive. And there's 56% are lightly or sedentary active. So that means 97% of us fall in the extremely inactive or lightly active. Although we believe that we are moderately active, 68% of us believe that we are moderately active. So this just shows that what we are doing as exercise is obviously not enough. There was one person who was actually moderately active and one person who was actually vigorously active. As per the poll, nobody was extremely active. So, it's always important that realization is the first step towards transformation. So once we realize where we are, then only we can start getting motivated to do further. Thank you everyone for the participation in the survey. It gave us good insights for ourselves. So I call upon Dr. Smriti to continue with the talk now.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here. कौन कहता है कि आसमां में छेद नहीं हो सकता? कौन कहता है कि आसमां में छेद नहीं हो सकता? एक पत्थर तो तबीयत से उछाल कर देखो यारों. I'm Dr. Smriti Naswa, consultant dermatologist at Fortis Hospital, and I'm also a diplomate of International Bowl of Lifestyle Medicine. We all are dealing today with an asman of non-communicable disease. The diseases which are chronic, cumbersome, they not only decrease the years of our life, they also decrease the life from our years. And we have been burdened by that, not only as ourselves, but for our family members, for our patients alike. As a practicing dermatologist for around 13 years, for the first 7 years, I used to tell people, because almost all of the dermatology diseases are also chronic, autoimmune, hormonal, or allergic, I used to tell people these are chronic. If you have genetics of diabetes or a genetics of allergies, it will come to you. It will be with you. And you'll have to take medicines and you'll have to be with that, live with that. Don't we say that to all of our patients? These are chronic diseases, you are doomed because it's there in your genes. But then 6 years down the line, I was introduced to the concept of lifestyle medicine. And that just opened everything for me. I could not sleep for 3 nights, that I can give answers to my patients, that there is an answer for not only primary prevention that we all tell, but also when the disease has come, there's a secondary prevention to improve its quality, and the tertiary prevention to prevent the complications for not only the medical field, but also the surgical fields. So here we are there together to discuss about the lifestyle medicine throughout the day. And today I'm going to, in this talk, just tell you about everything what is lifestyle medicine. If we go through the data, then WHO says that 66% of the deaths in 2019 in India happened because of the NCDs. The diabetes incidence, pre-diabetes incidence is going 136 million, and the cancer incidence is also projected to rise by 57.5% by 2040. The way the rates are going, it will be the cause of 75% of the deaths by 2030. And WEF has said that NCDs and mental health conditions would cost India $4.58 trillion in these 20 years. The global deaths also have seen the same thing. That we are seeing a rise in the NCD-related deaths. There's something shifting in the way that we live. This is the chart which Dr. Anuja also shared, that in 1990, when we were bothered by the communicable diseases, maternal health, and the nutrition, now we are bothered by 61.8% with the NCDs. And the states across the country are really spending a lot on these chronic diseases, which just they're just not ready to go. And we in India have a very peculiar genetics. As Dr. Sharang also told, we are prone to get diabetes at early age, at a lower BMI, and coronary artery disease. Even the alcohol, we just get dependent on it so soon. So are we all doomed, especially as Indians? Well, then this phenomenon came about epigenetics. So earlier, we used to think that epigenes were basically junk genes. 99% of our genes don't work at all. But then we came to know that these epigenome is where the environment starts playing its role. The internal environment as well as the external environment. Whether it is our nutrition, the stress, the toxicants, air pollution causing diabetes is so much in news nowadays. Pathogens, others. So when these two interact, that is when the phenotype changes, and that is what goes in the subsequent generation. But for me and for us all, it's a heartening news. Why? As Dr. Esselstyn always says, genetics loads the gun. Lifestyle pulls the trigger. So even if you are loaded, it does not mean that you have to be doomed for life. And then this particular study came in the US. They had a study in 1990 and then the follow-up in 2000, which told us a lot about the environment and the epigenes. So if you see, these were the actual causes of the death in the United States. And what they found out was that first top 3 causes were tobacco, poor diet, physical inactivity, and alcohol consumption. And if you see in 1990 to 2000, the poor diet and inactivity was actually increasing in the percentage. So 50% of these deaths were, out of them, the top 3 leading were rooted in the behavioral choices. Lifestyle behavior would then explicitly affect 80% of the causes of premature death. They represent modifiable risk factors that could actually significantly reduce premature mortality. Hence came the field of lifestyle medicines, because what we are dealing with now in last couple of decades, the Western countries were dealing since 1970s. For 40 and 50 years, they were seeing not only their patients, but their relatives die prematurely at age of 40 or 50 because of coronary artery disease. Aren't we seeing that in news every single day? That suddenly somebody is running and he just gets a cardiac arrest and is no more? So the lifestyle medicine is a medical specialty that uses therapeutic lifestyle interventions. And it is not just a suggestion कि अच्छा खाना खाओ और अच्छी exercise करो. It's proper prescription of the nutrition and the exercise and other pillars, which will be telling you, as primary modality to treat the chronic condition. It applies evidence-based whole person. Rather than focusing on the disease and its medicine, it's a whole person approach, prescriptive lifestyle change to prevent, treat, and when used intensively, reverse such conditions. Lifestyle medicine thus addresses the root cause of the problem. So is it different from the conventional medicine that we are practicing? No. Clinical practical guidelines for the top lifestyle-related chronic diseases also support lifestyle medicine as the first line of treatment before medications. With medications, but also as a very important part of the treatment regime. What are the pillars of the lifestyle? First is nutrition, exercise, substance abuse, healthy relationships, stress, sleep. How many of us actually start talking all these things in the history taking and in the treatment? We actually prefer to refer to the specialists, but not all patients want to get referred because they really have a trust factor with us. They really want our doctor to tell us what is right for us. So now we have got a hypothesis, we have got a definition, but because we are modern medicine practitioners, we want to prove everything, and then we prove it. Dr. Dean Ornish and his team in 1990, he's a cardiologist in the US, they had a lifestyle heart trial. It was a prospective randomized controlled trial. I'll only go through one. Dr. Ajay Prabhu will be dealing with much more studies with you. So they had adults who had no MI in the recent past, not planned for CABG, but had 1, 2, or 3 vessel disease, not on any lipid-lowering agents. They were divided into the standard care group as prescribed by the books, and the other was the intensive lifestyle change group. They did 10% of fat, whole foods, vegetarian diet, aerobic exercise, stress management training, smoking cessation, and group psychological support. This group psychological support we have seen a lot with the cancer, but it works in every single disease, how every single person helps the other person with a similar ailment, and they were astonished with the results. The results were not only at 1 year, but they continued 5 years. For the intensive lifestyle change group, there was a 7.9% relative improvement in the stenosis, while in the standard care, there was 27.7% worsening. So whatever we were doing, they were just getting more and more, the plaques were accumulating. And this was a beautiful photograph by Dr. Esselstyn, how the plaque size diminishes progressively with the plant-based nutrition. They went ahead. Dr. Dean Ornish and his team, they went ahead in 2008, proved it with carcinoma prostate, where the good 48 genes were upregulated, and the tumor-producing 453 genes were downregulated. They went with find out the study for telomere lengthening, which is a sign of longevity. And also in 2024, they proved how a disease like Alzheimer's and also Parkinson's, early dementia and cognitive impairment can be actually improved, reversed, prevented, made better with this kind of diet of whole foods, minimally processed, plant-based, high in complex carbohydrates, low in harmful fats, sweeteners, and refined carbs, and calories were unrestricted. There is no portion control here. They were not the only ones. To mention a few, because it will take me the whole day to tell you, these were the big studies ranging anywhere from 15 years to 40 years and still continuing. EPIC, Oxford trial, Predimed trial, Adventist study, Harvard professional study, Pritkins program, Lions Heart trial, diabetes prevention program, and 2 of India also. Sarathi et al. Had done Young Asian Diabetics and Freedom from Diabetes by Dr. Pramod Tripathi. These are certain doctors who have worked hard in last many decades. Dr. Neil Bernard on the hormones. Dr. David Jenkins proved the portfolio diet to be working equivalent to statins. Professor Colin Campbell, the famous Cornell China study on the carcinoma, and they only gave the name of whole plants. Dr. Brooke Goldner reversed her old systemic lupus erythematosus, and she's working a lot on autoimmune diseases. Predimed trial and the nurses' health study is ongoing for last 43 years. You know what is one common thing about all of these people? They tried all of these lifestyle changes into their lives first, and then in their family's life. And then they saw the changes, and they could not stop to tell it to their patients, and then saw that again. So what about us Indian physicians? So as Dr. Sharang's study also told, 20% of us are obese, 53% are diabetic, 24% are hypertensive. But there is much more to this. This is only pill, right? But we deal with a special occupational hazard, and that is physician burnout. The typical chronic care that we are doing with the patients of today of NCDs, we experience stress, 93% of us. We have depression reported in 69%, 13% had some thoughts of suicide, but all these things because we're just not able to manage the diseases. And answering the relatives is not that easy. So how can these 6 pillars be of help to our burnout? It has 2-pronged approach. Number 1, for ourselves, this study tells that the surgeons who regularly exercise have less burnout, those who spend time with families and talk about feelings have less burnout, and those who focus on good sleep rhythm, circadian rhythm, have less burnout. And what's the second aspect about it? Doctors prescribing lifestyle medicines to their patients across medical and surgical specialties. 90% reported to have positively impacted 40% decreased burnout because of not only professional satisfaction, sense of accomplishment, feeling of meaningfulness, improved patient outcome and satisfaction, but also the enjoyment of teaching and the creating of the relationships that they had with the patients and their families. The more the practice of LM in the medical practice, the lesser the burnout. Now, an orthopedician does not need to suffer a fracture to treat a fracture. But as a lifestyle medicine professional, when we practice what you preach, it just has better results. So physicians who exercise are more likely to counsel on exercise. Those who have normal BMI are more confident about the physical activity. Then those who eat less fat they'll counsel more on cholesterol. Those who are having 5 fruits and vegetables every day are counseling more on nutrition. And one important thing is that poor physician health habits affect the counseling of the patients. So we have to start walking the talk the way Dr. Davis Sebgir did. He's a cardiologist in Ohio, like nobody's moving. I'm telling everybody to walk, nobody's moving. So he started this, it's an anthem now, walking with the dog, and it's coming to all over the world, including our country. Let's walk. Walk the talk, walk with the dog, doing the consultations while walking with the patients. So, what's the beautiful thing about the lifestyle medicine? You can balance your cake on one leg, and then you can eat it too, guilt-free. And that's the cake that we love to make, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and you can just have it as your dinner. You will not be feeling anything bad about it. So let's go for the pillars of the lifestyle medicine. The first pillar is nutrition, which Dr. Anuja also touched, and we'll be talking throughout the day. These are some of my breakfast smoothie bowls and the dinner salads. So this was shared by Dr. Anuja. What I want to tell is something very special about it. So this is the actual cause. What was the food nutrition that was causing these diseases, the non-communicable diseases? If you see this, the topmost factor are diet high in sodium, low in whole grains, low in fruits, low in nuts and seeds, low in vegetables, low in fiber, low in PUFA, low in legumes. Can you see something common about them? All of these things are low in whole plants. Then comes the diets high in trans fat, diets high in sugar-sweetened beverages. So this is the category of ultra-processed foods. And the third is the diet high in processed meat, low in milk, high in red meat. So only stopping the processed meat and red meat is not going to solve the problem of coronary artery disease. We have to start increasing this, because the chunk of the death is much more here. What are we eating today? This is the regular plate of all the birthday parties. I mean, you offer chole bhature to the kids and they're like, oh my God, such a sad thing. Even chole bhature is a sad thing for them. They only want this. And our generation has done to their generation, because we have created happiness quotient with this. And what is missing in this? Fiber. The most deficient nutrient in today's date is fiber, not iron, not protein, not calcium, but fiber. What is fiber available? And why is fiber important? This is my favorite slide. Fiber does something to the gut microbiome. Yeah, so this is the normal gut microbiome, normal tight junction, whatever onslaughts you begin, your toxins, your vaccines, your medicines, your food, your bacteria, your virus, or fungus, your proteins, everything, it is protecting us. But the moment you stop giving the fiber, there is something called as leaky gut. And these dietary proteins, antibiotics, infections, sugar, antibodies, allergens, all go through into the system, and that creates chronic inflammatory complexes, causing inflammation, autoimmunity, nutrition deficiency, hormonal changes, and cancers. All of the diseases coming in one picture out here. Fiber is found in whole grains, leafy greens, vegetables, fruits, legumes, seeds, nuts, and seeds. So our plate has to look like this. It has to be this. And what is fiber not therein? It is absent in meat and chicken, fish and meats, eggs, milk and milk products, oils, and refined and processed foods. It's not there. So what are whole plant foods? To just give you the simplest of the ways, we have to understand that not all carbohydrates are equal. To cut the carbs does not make any sense. Simple carbs have to be cut, complex carbohydrates have to be increased. This is the simple and complex carbs when it comes to the simple and complex proteins. So this is the proteins that we are talking about here. And these are the processed packaged protein powders, which we do not think even once before prescribing to the patients. But what we need to prescribe is this. And then the processed oils versus the whole fats. The whole fats in Jenkins' diet has told that they compete. They have plant stenols and sterols. They're phytosterols. They compete with the cholesterol to bind, and they actually reduce the cholesterol and the lipid profile levels, while the oils will do the exact opposite. So what we are speaking is this dietary guideline as for the lifestyle medicine, American College of Lifestyle Medicine. You have to have 50% of your plate as fruits and vegetables, and 25% as the whole grains, 25% of the proteins, and drink water as a beverage. Are only we talking it? No. Every single country's dietary guidelines are also talking the same thing. What are they talking? Indian ICMR 2024 guideline. Can you see the 50% of the plate as fruits and vegetables? Yes. Then we have grains, nuts and seeds, and 10% of it as animal foods. US dietary guideline is also 50% fruits and vegetables, then there is grains and proteins, and 10% of the animal foods. Then Canada is also saying 50% as the fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and water as the beverage of choice. So the dietary guidelines are also slowly but surely shifting to what doctors have been speaking for last 40, 50 years. And this is the common query. I'll just exercise and I'll burn my chole bhature. I want you all to remember this slide. You cannot outrun a bad diet. Weight does not decrease because of exercise. Majority of people saying, my God, I have backache and my TKR हो गया है, मैं नहीं हिल सकता, इसलिए मेरा weight बढ़ रहा है. तो उनको बोलो, very good news. Weight loss does not happen with exercise, it happens with diet. Weight maintenance happens with exercise. And calorie counting and portion control. People are weighing their calories and eating. It is like the fun of the food has been taken away. The beautiful thing about whole plants in the nutrition is that you never have to calculate any portion. And the reason is that the oil as 500 calories is this much. थोड़ा बड़ा पाव खाया, बहुत जगह बची है. Cheese is also a lot of space left. Meat is a lot of space left. Even cooked potato, rice, and beans, you have the space for ice cream in your tummy. But when you fill your tummy 50% with the fruits and vegetables, you have just filled it up. You feel satiated. You are like, I'm done. And you still have not done your calories there. And this is what a 480 calorie looks like. And this is what it looks like. That one small piece of brownie there. And if I tell you this was something I found on Instagram, it was a beautiful one. This person says, I only eat vada pav in that snack. And that guy says, I had so much. But this vada pav, he'll need at least 90 minutes of fast-paced walk to control, and just burn it. And here they say chai biscuit. This is such a common scenario in all of the hospitals. In the morning, 9:30, anesthetist calls the doctor saying, oh my God, the diabetes has shot up. What did you have 6 hours before? Instead of chai biscuit, you're eating this much of calories there. Where here, you do not even think about calories because nobody can eat this much in one go. But ये टंग का क्या करे? दिल है कि मानता नहीं. No worries. As Dr. Anuja also showed some beautiful photos. This is called as culinary science, culinary medicine. Here you can curate beautiful recipes. The answer is here. Do not cheat ever. Always celebrate with changing to healthier ingredients. This is my favorite, sattu peanut date laddu. It does not have any other ingredients except sattu, peanut, dates, and nuts and seeds. These are the cakes we create with jowar, atta, almond flour, and everything. And yeah, so we shift from this to this. We shift from this to this. And our normal desi Indian ghar ka khana plate, which looks like this, has to shift to this. 50% of the diet becomes fruits and vegetables. The second pillar is exercise, now that we have talked about the athletes. So exercise, the other things Dr. Anuja will be taking in details, but I want to tell what Dr. Sharang told. 78% of us do not meet the guidelines as per the physical activity guidelines of Americans. 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise aerobic a week with at least 2 days a week of muscle strength training. 1 in 4, 3 in 4 adolescents. You know why this scares me? 1 in 4 adults, but 3 in 4 adolescents. What kind of generation are we coming up with? Much less healthier than even us. And as countries develop economically, this is called as rich and affluent class diseases, right? Levels of inactivity decreases and can be as high as 70%. The third pillar is sleep. So why sleep? Very important, circadian rhythm. We doctors do not follow circadian rhythm ourselves. The reason is that melatonin rises after the sunset and cortisol peaks in the morning. So nowadays, everybody comes to tell me, we have premature graying, early aging, weight nahi kam hota. There are patients, we just change the dinner times from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. and they lose up to 4 kilos in a month. And the reason is that the thyroid becomes properly active and your basal metabolic rate is kicked in there. That's why the concept of intermittent fasting, where Mr. Yoshinori Oshumi got the Nobel Prize in 2016 to prove how it works, not only for insulin resistance, but also for autophagy, which is so important for autoimmune and cancers. The next pillar is stress. So this is Dr. Qing Li. This is the beautiful beauty about walking in nature. So I tell everyone, on the weekends, instead of going to the malls and eating your ultra-processed foods, go to the RA, go to the national parks, go and trek there, because nature walking has an added advantage than the normal walking. They did a study in the emergency department, and the trees which liberate certain essential oils called as phytoncides, they reported the work stress reduced to 3% from 41%. Yes, I can handle difficult situation from 13% promised to 58%, and the energy levels were 77%. This is the impact of the nature as the stress reduction therapy. And good food, good mood. You know why? Because 90% of the serotonin, the calming neurotransmitter, is liberated by gut bacteria. You feed the gut bacteria and you are happy. The next pillar is substance abuse. We all know tobacco, alcohol, and substance abuse are not good, but I'm going to talk about digital addiction. The problematic social media abuse, 44% have an independent association with depression, and it associated with not only the frequency, but also emotional investment in social media. The sleepy teens are the nighttime specific usage, which is associated with poor sleep, anxiety, depression, and lower self-esteem. And then the three whites and the refines and the ultra processed. The recent study of the aging population, by the way, the population of this room, 50 to 80 adults, said that 13% had an addiction for highly processed foods, and last year 44% had one or more addiction reports. And what are these additives? They not only cause addiction, they also cause ADHD, endocrine disruption. They're carcinogenic, hence no one can eat just one. Healthy relationships, it's best described by the blue zones. If you have not watched the movie, today is the day. Blue zones are 4 places: Loma Linda, Sardinia, Nicoya, Ikaria, and Okinawa in the world. Mr. Dan Butner with his team, they found out that there, 80 years is the youngest age group. They are crossing 100, 110, 120, and what do? They have a purpose. They move naturally. They eat till 80% full. They stop after 6. They have more plants and vegetables grown in their own kitchen garden. They believe in the community, the tribe, and being with the loved and family members. The food that they are eating is also full of whole plant ingredients as the base of the food pyramid. I would end this talk by saying, Yukta hara viharasya, Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Yukta swapnava bodhasya, Yogo bhavati dukhaha. It's a Gita shlok from 6th chapter, 17th shloka. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all the material pains by practicing the yoga system. Thank you. Okay. Now it's the prize as we had promised. So a prize for the audience. The rule is that we will ask the questions because you want to win, so please raise the hand. One of us will tell whoever, do not answer immediately, otherwise your prize can go to someone else. And we'll give 2 options because there is an MCQ of 4. This is the question. What is the most significant way by which an individual can contribute to planetary health? Yes, sir. Very good. Perfect. And can you explain how? He's answered it beautifully well. So not only we are working on personal health, patient health, but also planetary health. This is the slide which said the modifiable human lifestyle factors that contribute most to the climate change causing greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental degradation are dietary patterns, 20%, 18.4%, and mode of transport, road transport. A predominantly whole food plant-based dietary pattern significantly reduces personal carbon and environmental footprints, plus it also provides antioxidants to counteract the oxidative damage due to environmental pollutants. This is the United Nations write-up of this is the last year's write-up that they have read. Please eat more whole plants. Thank you.
While Dr. Ajoy is setting up his presentation, so we'll have this Q&A sessions in between. There will be intermittent questions asked for the audience. And just as we did, raise your hands, and whoever gets, we'll be noting down your names. There will be a prize distribution at the end where we'll be distributing prizes for everybody. So don't blurt out the answer even if you know it. And feel free to participate and give answers. Right or wrong, doesn't matter. Enjoy the experience. We'll be taking the questions and during the panel discussion that we'll be having after the talks are completed.
Year was 2017. I was working at NIH, and my office was on the 4th floor. And I had this habit of taking my briefcase, holding it like that, and just running up the stairs. 4 floors, कोई problem nahi, okay? 2017 had already been like about 3 or 4 years since I started being plant-based. I stopped eating meat, stopped having dairy and stuff like that. And one day, I ran up the stairs, opened the door, and there's carpet, there's a new secretary, the office looks completely different. I said, what the hell is going on? Maybe they didn't tell me that we've shifted or something. And then I realized, I talked to this lady and I said, where is technology transfer? She said, sir, downstairs. This is the 6th floor. You have to go to the 4th floor. So what landed up happening was I was so used to running up the stairs that I knew that if this much is my level of exhaustion, I have reached my floor. I didn't even have to look at number 4 on the floor thing. I would just open the door, my office was right there. So my amount of exhaustion, my ability to exert less to get to the level that I wanted to, my endurance had improved, but I didn't even realize it. That's one thing. The second one I want to tell you is I'm 62 right now. My dad, when he was 54, 55, this is very typical of all of us Indians, right? 54, 55, he had hypertension, he had hyperthyroidism, he was hypertensive, pre-diabetic. My mother, by the time she was 55, she was diabetic, and she had fibroids and stuff like that. None of the my dad also had some little hyperplasia, prostatic hyperplasia. None of the above. Okay, I have the same genes. And Dr. Nasad mentioned this, right, about the epigenomics and I don't think you mentioned telomerase, but epigenetics is a huge component of, we cannot just think of our genes as being, okay, static, and we got these genes, now we're going to get this diabetes and hypertension and so on and so forth. You don't have to get it. Is the thing that I want to mention to you. So let's start. I'm a co-founder of Cersei Health and PlantRx. I was director for technology marketing at NIH USA. Now I'm practicing medicine here in India. So why do chronic diseases happen? Genes, right? Everybody says genes. Today is out of scope for talking about genes too much, but we're going to concentrate on diet and lifestyle. So this is how, I mean, I know I'm kind of like repeating some of her slides, but I just want to, again emphasize the fact that this is very important for us to understand. What she's got here is a lot healthier than what we do today, right? What do we do in the past? What do we do today? Right? It's very important to understand the difference, and making small changes towards going back to those days is highly, highly, highly important. After having said that, I also want to say that just because we are saying something today doesn't automatically mean that it is 100% true and it's right and so on, because our understanding of human biology depends on the time we live in. Today, we are saying this is the best thing we know in medicine. We should try to practice it so that we stay healthy, our patients stay healthy, we have a long life, our patients have a long life, our families have long life and healthy lives, right? That's what we say today. Earlier on, I mean, maybe tomorrow somebody might discover something slightly different, and we have to switch to that. So we have to always be open towards learning new things in life, right? Because this is what they used to do to get rid of diseases earlier. Bloodletting, it's called, right? My wife's grandmother was told by her doctor, her physician, to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day so that she does not put on too much weight during her pregnancy, right? So we are also making a lot of mistakes as of today, as of 2025, but I can tell you that we are doing the best job we can as far as medicine is concerned in terms of understanding the best ways of understanding science. We're putting this for ourselves and for our patients, right? That's what we want to do. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of idea about why we get biased. So today I'm going to talk only about the evidence as far as plant-based medicine or lifestyle medicine, as well as whole food plant-based diet is concerned. So here are 2 archaeologists, and they are working they're digging up some human skeletons and stuff like that. So I want to show you the bias that takes place. So first and foremost, I noticed in this picture, I had not noticed it before, there's a pipe there. So one of them is smoking, so they think that it's normal to smoke, and today we know it's not a great idea, right? So now they're digging for something. What do you think they're going to expect to find? They find, this is 1940s, 1950s, so they were finding bones, so they said people were having a lot of meat and so on, right? Are they looking for fruits and vegetables? No, because this is what they ate. Is this thing working with the, I don't know whether this is working. Anyway, this is what they ate. They ate meat and eggs and so on and so forth. So their mind is already biased towards finding bones, because nothing else is going to survive. Not fruits and vegetables. They're not going to find fruit peels and vegetable peels in there or seeds in there, right? And also, they did not have, they didn't have the technology to look between the teeth to find pollen. Today, we have the technology. We can actually do microtomy and look for pollen in between teeth and find out what that pollen, what plant they were eating. And they found that, today, we found that, that these were mostly fruits, vegetables, berries, grains, so we were not really hunter-gatherers. We were gatherer-hunters. This is what latest science says. Can chronic diseases be reversed? And this is something that if nothing else out of this whole conference, if you can take home, chronic diseases can be reversed 100%. We have I have a list of 31 diseases, but I think in some instances I've only mentioned 15, 16. Of them that can actually be reversed. There's evidence for it, there's case studies for it, there's scientific data, there's clinical trials for it, randomized trials, longitudinal studies. So I'm going to take you back to 1939. This is the year was 1939. This is Norway. Norway was, during World War II, Norway was invaded by Germany in 1939. And what the Germans did was they said, oh, we really don't want to leave your, your beef, your sheep, your chicken and stuff like that. We're going to take it over because we want to give it to our soldiers. So they took away all this stuff from the Norwegians. And, oops, sorry, go back. Go back. So look at this. The guy is actually pulling the cart. This originally was a horse that would be pulling the cart. And the Norwegians had to leave their stuff behind, including horses, cow, cattle, everything, and just run away from their homes. And the Germans took over all their meat and poultry and everything. Norway had this fantastic thing of people, administrators who would record the deaths. Very systematically they were recording it. And what ended up happening was, if you look at the Norwegian death rate, there were just normal increase in death rate. And then Germany invaded, and look what happened. The death rate dropped. By 1943, the death rate had dropped significantly. And the reason for that is because the Norwegians had stopped eating beef, chicken, poultry and stuff like that, or whatever, sheep and stuff like that, and no milk, nothing, and no eggs. And they were subsisting on potatoes, grains, vegetables, asparagus, and so on and so forth. So they were eating nothing but plants, and their death rate dropped. And as a good experiment in history, this happened. When the Germans left, they got back their chicken, they got back their cows, they got back their milk, and so on, and their death rate started climbing up again. So this is an actual case in history. There's plenty of evidence like this in other Scandinavian countries, but I think Norway was the best one that recorded this. Another case. So there's one of my heroes is Dr. Burkitt, whose name is associated with Burkitt's lymphoma. So his friend, Hugh Trowell, who was an emergency physician, he called Dr. Burkitt in 1968 into the emergency room and saying, look, there's a guy with an MI, an active MI. They had not seen a myocardial infarction in Uganda till 1968. They had not recorded it. I'm sure they were, but they had not recorded it. And when they found out, about this guy, about this heart attack, they found out that, oops, why is it going fast? Sorry, I'm not sure. Sorry about that. This gentleman who had this is a representative of the gentleman, but he was obese. He was a judge in Uganda who had lived most of his life in London, so he had picked up all the bad Western habits of having meat and no fiber and high fat diet, and that's why he had the heart attack. Whereas in 1968 Uganda, they barely used to eat meat. We always think of Africans as eating meat, but they mostly ate tubers, root vegetables, and fruits, and so on and so forth, and not a ton of meat. Yes, they ate meat, they drank blood, but it was very minimal as compared to the plant-based foods that they used to eat. So it's ironic that the first heart attack that was recorded was of a guy who had lived in London mostly. Here's a case of what I call the immortal mouse. This takes a little bit of a understanding about the experiment, but this was 1968 again, and two researchers, Dr. Madhavan and Dr. Gopalan in Hyderabad, they went to NIH and got some mice. These were genetically modified mice that after a few weeks of living, they would be given their normal food. After 12 weeks, they were designed to die. Okay, so after 12 weeks, they would automatically die because of cancer. What ended up happening was these genetically modified mice, after some time, they didn't have enough food to give them, the food that came with the mice. So after a few generations, they didn't have enough food. So what they ended up doing was they gave them grains. And after 12 weeks, the mice continued to live. Dr. Madhavan and Dr. Gopalan were quite surprised at the results. So they weren't quite sure what is going on with it. And, oops, let me go back again. Let's just stop right there. They were not quite sure what was happening with the mice. So they gave up this study. They didn't really pursue this more. And years or decades later, people have gone back to their studies and said, oh my God, this is a seminal study we should have really thought about. That, substituting the casein with whole grains actually allowed them to conquer the cancer that they were genetically predisposed to. Does that make sense? Okay. Sorry, my slides are a little, the animation is weird. Okay. Next case is in the 1980s, and Dr. Chen from China was visiting Dr. Colin Campbell in Cornell University. There was another gentleman by the name Dr. Lee who was visiting NIH at that time, and Dr. Chen, Dr. Campbell, and Dr. Lee were just generally discussing. Dr. Chen was really interested in looking at selenium, the effects of selenium or the drop in selenium for people who have certain types of cancers. So he was very interested in that particular topic. But he came and sat down with Dr. Campbell, and they were just discussing in the lab, saying, "Hey, how's the health, generally health in China and so on and so forth." And the results are like, we barely have any heart disease, we barely have any cancer, breast cancer. Our cholesterol level is better than yours. Obesity rate is much better than yours. Diabetes prevalence is less. Prostate cancer is almost unknown. Colon cancer rates are lower. Osteoporosis risk is less. Lung cancer trends are much better than yours. So Dr. Campbell was, how is that possible? Why is it that you guys are so much better as far as you're healthier? Your rural population seem to be a lot healthier than the Americans. So that's when they started this epic study, which now is known. And so, they wanted to unravel this. So they came up with a solution, which was to look at the Chinese population, China and Taiwan. So they studied for so they collected data for 20 plus years, almost 10,500 participants, and resulted in what is now known as the China study. So the findings are very straightforward. Plant-based diet equals low disease risk. Animal protein causes cancer. Less animal products is better health. Prevent, halt, and even reverse chronic disease. This is one of the first times a very, famous study that actually showed that some of these chronic diseases can be reversed. And they published a book called The China Study. You can always, if you don't have it, I would highly recommend reading it. In 1990s, we have I don't know why it's not showing up properly. So we have a left anterior descending artery, which is called the Widowmaker. I don't know if people know this. Dr. Esselstyn had a bunch of patients that basically said, I really don't want to go through cabbage. I don't want to take medicines and so on and so forth. So he had a bunch of patients that did not want to go through traditional intervention, and they said, give me something else. So he said, do you want to try just having plants for as your meal? And I believe they also had some stress reduction exercises and all in it. And in 3 years' time, the LAD improved. The stenosis was gone, and the plaque formation was completely, it disappeared. Okay, so this was one of the first times they showed that without any the therapy here was not medicine. It was purely a dietetic intervention. They made them change their diet, and there was improvement in their arterial condition. Okay, so no surgery, no medicine. 2016, a new branch of medicine was formed, just like cardiology, just like nephrology, and so on and so forth, called lifestyle medicine. This is in America, I'm sorry, I'm talking about America. Why would somebody just set up a new division it would be set up only if it's really happening, right? I mean, you don't just set up a new branch of medicine saying, oh, well, let's try kya hota hai, after some time we'll shut it down. This is here, and this is here to stay. So all the audience that is sitting here, you guys are very privileged to understand that this is a new branch of medicine, lifestyle medicine, that is not some mumbo jumbo. This is real. You can actually make a huge impact in your own lives, your family's life, and very importantly, your patients' lives. So that's pretty much, I mean, I cannot overemphasize this. I don't want to go over this slide again and again, but these are the core components of lifestyle medicine, which have already been gone through again. So exercise, social interaction, sleep, de-stressing, minimizing substance abuse, and nutrition. Primarily, throughout the rest of the talks, we'll be talking about nutrition. Okay. I think it's time for my side of the quiz now. Okay. So, raise of hands. What's one of the key reasons we have a rise in chronic diseases today? Improved medical technology, increased genetic mutations, changes in diet and lifestyle, more access to healthcare. Lady here. C, changes in diet and lifestyle. Correct. What was a major finding from T. Colin Campbell's China study? High-fat diets are essential for heart health. Plant-based diets reduce the risk of chronic diseases. Dairy products help prevent cancer. Animal protein has no impact on disease growth. Wait, I need a raise of hands. Okay, B. Plant-based diets reduce the risk of chronic disease. Correct. Okay, next one. What historical event provided evidence that diet changes can impact mortality? The Great Depression, World War II, food shortages, Industrial Revolution, and discovery of antibiotics. I'm going to go with somebody here. That was an easy one, right? So, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's honest. Anyway, you saw Norway, right? So we'll skip this one then. I think my animation is really in bad shape. Okay, I'm not going to touch this, see if it comes up. Okay, good, it didn't. What was the key conclusion by Dr. Gopalan and Dr. Madhavan? Animal protein inhibits cancer growth. High dietary protein intake promotes cancer growth. Cancer is entirely genetic. Aflatoxin exposure has no link to cancer. Okay, somebody here, yeah. B, high diet protein intake promotes cancer growth, correct. Yes, but I think she answered before the thing came up. Okay, and the last question I have is, what's the primary focus of lifestyle medicine? Using pharmaceuticals to treat chronic disease, treating chronic disease through lifestyle factors, replacing medical treatments with natural medicine, using plant-based diet for disease reversal. It's a tricky one. Who wants to answer? Yeah, lady in pink here. Yes. What did you say, B or D? D for Delhi? Now I cannot give one more time. That's not correct. So I'm going to choose somebody here. Yes, B. B is the right one because it's not just, this is a little tricky. It's not just nutrition. It's not just nutrition, remember? Okay. And so I finished with my quiz, but I do want to put a little plug for my book here. It just got released yesterday. I have a copy here. And a lot of the stuff that you'll be hearing today, and some more, telomerase activity, epigenetics, and you can. These are some of the key things that we've written. This is my and my wife's combined knowledge for the past 15 odd years. I don't know how many people know her. She is a double MD in pediatrics and internal medicine. Me with a research pathology background. I think we put in a fair bit of whatever we've learned into this so that you can even start it as a, what do you call it? Like, when we were in school, we used to call it kunji, like a little cheat sheet to carry with us to know, what kind of questions to, answer during the exam. So this has a lot of, like, for example, the first line treatment for top 10 NCDs is there. So you can use it as a start for your own benefit and the benefits of your patients. Okay, so I'm going to stop. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'll move on to the next talk. I've been past 6 years on a plant-based diet, right? And whenever I tell somebody about this kind of a diet, the first question I get asked is, where do you get your proteins from, right? That's the first thing. Luckily, some people are not asked the same question, but some of us have to face that question again and again. So, I thought let us discuss this very peculiar problem about proteins. Everybody is so worried about it, whether it is justified, whether it's necessary. What is this entire mystery, right? So little bit of basics. Proteins are, of course, complex molecules of amino acids. 16% of the protein weight is nitrogen, okay? Which is why plants are basically the producers of proteins, because they are the only ones that can assimilate nitrogen from the soil, correct? All animals, humans, everything included are only the consumers. We have to get everything from the source, that is the plants. Proteins are, of course, extremely essential. They have multiple roles in the body. Majority of the proteins are found in the skeletal muscle and also in the transport proteins. So when we consume proteins, what happens, right? First, they are broken down into amino acids. Some of these go in our feces unabsorbed. Majority get absorbed, and they form a free amino acid pool. Okay, the important point to note here, there is no storage organ for proteins. So it's either excreted by the kidneys or it is converted to fat by the liver. Okay, prize alert. Which is the recommended diet for endurance runners at the night before a run? Would you recommend? Raise of hands, please. High carb, high fat, high protein, balanced diet. Yes, sir. Marun. High protein. High carb, okay. So there's a balanced diet, okay. So let us make this interesting and not blurt out answers. See, because anyone blurting out is not going to get the prize anyways. So control your emotions. Many of you may be knowing the right answer, and that's good, but just saying it out is not going to help, right? So, what's your name, madam? Twisha. Oh, so high carb diet is the important part, because as a fuel, proteins are not good. Okay, only 5% of our energy comes from proteins. It is the carbs, the glycogen that is stored in our muscles that gives us the energy to run. Okay, this free amino acid also, it is used for synthesis of metabolites. But most importantly, we have to understand there is a huge recycling of proteins that occurs in our body. The proteins that we have get broken down into amino acids, and those same amino acids are used to rebuild proteins. Okay, and this is extremely an effective mechanism for protein balance. And that balance depends on our intake of protein. So this was a randomized controlled trial which studied 2.4 grams of protein versus 0.4 grams of protein. And they found that those with a low protein intake did not have a more negative protein balance, which is what we would expect. But they didn't have that. And why is that so? Because when protein intake reduces, the body balances out by reducing the catabolism and the turnover. So the dietary needs also start reducing. On the other hand, when the intake increases, the body again balances so that whatever intake is going on is again balanced out. So the body actually has all the proteins it needs to maintain our muscle mass. Okay? So then why do we need to eat proteins at all? That's because there is an unavoidable loss of nitrogen which is continuously occurring when it is shed off from the skin, the hairs, the nails, and the sweat even. And also, amino acids are released from the urine. So, body needs the daily dietary protein to replace these unavoidable losses. Okay? So the first question that we are going to address is, how much protein do we need for this? And again, prize alert. So who will need more dietary protein? A healthy sedentary male, a healthy sedentary female, a healthy active male, healthy active female, or all will need the same? Last one. All will need the same. Anybody has a different answer? Anyone? Yes, madam? A healthy active male. Okay. Anybody else has other than these two answers? A healthy sedentary male. Okay. So, what's your good name, madam? Priya Shanbag. That's the right answer. All will need the same. And the reason being that proteins are a little different from carbs and fats. Why? Because carbs and fats are energy providers, okay? Their requirement depends on our caloric needs, and our caloric needs are dependent on age, gender, and activity, right? Proteins are needed, like I said, to to cover the unavoidable losses, and that is decided by the body weight of a person. So that question had, assuming all had the same body weight. So it is, that's why it's always mentioned in grams per kg per day. Right? It is not affected by age, not affected by gender, and not affected by physical activity even. And we'll come to that a little later. Right? So this is all studies, all RDAs and everything have come to this. Multiple studies have shown that the estimated average requirement of proteins is 0.66 grams per kg per day, which means that 50% of the population would do fine without having less than that also. But to be safe, the recommended daily allowance is 0.83 grams per kg per day, which covers almost all of the population. So if you have this much of protein per day, the chances that you will get protein deficiency are almost non-existent. One more. A healthy person puts on 15 kgs of weight. His protein requirement will now increase, decrease, remain the same. Raise of hands, please. Madam? Remain the same. Anybody has another answer? Yes, madam. Increase. Decrease ko kisi ko bolna hai abhi? That's the only thing. You're right, madam. What's your good name? Dr. Shobha. It remains the same. Why? Because it is decided by the ideal body weight of a person. It is not affected by the actual body weight. See, we don't have to eat proteins for the fat that we are gaining. Right? So if you are healthy, whatever proteins you require, you will require the same even if you add another 20 kgs of fat. So if you have your height, then you can easily calculate what is your ideal body weight. So a person of say 5 feet 8 inches will require, ideal body weight is around 65 kgs, and the protein requirement, if you multiply by 0.8, would be around 52 grams per day. Okay? So this is 0.8 grams per kg ideal weight per day. That is the recommended daily allowance. Okay? Now, can we get this much protein from plants? That's the next question that we have to ask. So let us take an example. An average Indian male, 35-year-old, sedentary, 5 feet 8 with 65 kgs. So his daily protein requirement would be 52 grams to avoid any protein deficiency. And we know that such a person is recommended to take a caloric intake of 2,200 calories. We don't need to count calories, as we have said, but this is the guideline which is there. So we will go by that for this example. And 1 gram of protein will give us 4 calories that we all know, which means that 52 into 4, that is around 208 calories of what you are eating should come from proteins. I hope everybody is with me. So what this means that 10% of this 2200 calories, which is 220 calories, should come from proteins. Now this is known as the protein energy ratio, or PER. So when your PER is 10%, that means whatever you are eating, 10% of that calories are coming from proteins, right? So what it means is that any diet of 2,200 calories with a PER of more than 10% will provide the recommended daily allowance of proteins for that person. Yes, is everybody with me on this? So based on PER, in fact, a food can be called a source of proteins if the PER is more than 12%, and a high protein source if PER is more than 20%. And now we just have to look at the PER of different foods. Okay, if you look at legumes, see the PER that they have. They are all high protein sources. If you look at vegetables, see the amount of PER they have. Multiple, you will see that. They are all high proteins. Grains, if you have them whole like wheat germ without grinding and without making them into chapati, and then they are high protein sources, but otherwise they are good sources of proteins. Nuts and seeds, again, good source of protein because a lot of their energy comes from fats as well, although good fats, but still comes from fats. Fruits, of course, do not fall in the protein source category. So fruits will not give you any proteins. I mean, they will give you some, but not, you cannot bank on them for your proteins. And which is why, based on PER, if all your calories came from broccoli alone, compared to beef alone, you would still get more calories with, more proteins with broccoli. The same, spinach has more protein than chicken and fish based on your PER. So to get adequate proteins, you have to get adequate calories and you have to eat enough foods with adequate PER. If you do these two things, I mean, if you don't eat, then obviously you're not going to get enough proteins either. So yes, definitely we can get proteins from plants. Next question is, then are we protein deficient? This seems to be very easy. Well, let's see. If you type, that's what I did. On Google, I searched, are Indians protein deficient? And I got multiple articles I got, and all of them saying deficient, 71%, 68% protein deficient, wreck muscle strength. And whichever, these are all articles. I couldn't find any studies. But whatever link I clicked on, I got this survey. Okay, Prodigy survey it was called, which surveyed a total of 1,260 people, okay, out of a population of 1.5 billion. That's that much percentage they surveyed. And they concluded that 91% vegetarians and 85% of non-vegetarians were protein deficient. I was very curious by this study. I was impressed. So I said, let's look into it. I found this only after a lot of search. I clicked on that full text and these kind of messages came in. If anybody can find this study, please share it with me because I'm really curious. I don't know what protein criteria they kept for deciding they are deficient. That's all I want to know. I couldn't find it anywhere. Then my friend here, Dr. Anuja, showed that one of the authors happens to be promoting a protein supplement as well. So I don't know, you can join the dots probably. So does that mean there is no protein deficiency? Well, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, right? So there are, of course, problems which have been attributed to protein deficiency: skin, hair, nail problems, loss of muscle mass, fatty liver, increased risk of bone fractures, risk of infections. But it is also known that protein deficiency rarely occurs as an isolated condition. Most of the times it is insufficient food intake causing energy deficiency, and we have seen that inadequate calories mean inadequate proteins, which is why incidence of marasmus is 5 times more than of kwashiorkor. Now, these are the actual figures of how much protein intake the world is doing. If you see, India has the worst. India is the least consuming country consuming proteins. And if you look at the average protein requirement, this is the study speaking, I'm not saying anything here, almost everybody is eating above the recommended protein intake, right? But if you look at the other side, the calorie intake, India is deficient in calories. So we are not eating enough, which is one of the reasons why we are having protein deficiency. Again, if you increase and reach the recommended levels, you will obviously get more proteins than what is required. This was a brilliant study for protein intakes in India based on the PER ratio that we spoke about. And they found the general PER is around 10.8%, which is like just about where we need to be, right? But see what this is. The majority of Indians are taking proteins from where? From cereals and millets, which we know and we have seen have a lot less PER. What we need to increase is pulses and legumes. They are the ones that are giving us more proteins. So in our plate also, what Dr. Smriti showed, you have chapati and rice, which are the major portions, and sabji, dal, everything is so small. Those proportions have to be reversed. Because there's a transition to refined grains, sugar-sweetened beverages, trans fats, and processed foods. So that is where our food and calories are coming from. So how can a plant diet be protein deficient? Can you make it? Well, by eating excess junk food, which will not give you any nutrition. By eating only fruits, obviously you will not get proteins. By eating only cereals, which many of the poverty regions have to do that. They just survive on cereals. So unfortunately, they will not get enough proteins during starvation, obviously. And by considering higher protein requirements. What does that mean? Now, instead of 0.8, if you feel that we need 1.2 grams per kg per day, then entire India, Asia and Africa will be protein deficient. If you say that we require 1.4 grams per kg per day, the whole world will become protein deficient in a single moment. Okay? So based on current recommended guidelines, an adequate and balanced whole food plant-based diet will provide necessary proteins. That is clear. So are we protein deficient? Well, I could say there is a lot of scope for improvement. We can do a lot better than what we are doing. Is taking more protein better then? And 1.8 is the minimum that we require. What happens if we go on increasing our protein intake? Well, this was a meta-analysis of randomized control trials, okay? Multiple randomized control trials and a meta-analysis of that, where they compared high protein diet versus standard protein diet, and they did show that high protein diet provides modest benefits for reductions in body weight, fat mass, and triglycerides, yeah? So there is some, obviously, role, but there is the other side as well. Studies have also shown health problems related to higher protein consumption. In pregnancy, if you consume extra protein, then the risk of small for gestational age babies increases. In children, we are getting higher BMI and body fat percentage. And in adults, there is increased risk of mortality, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, especially if the proteins are coming from animal sources. Okay? And which is where I want to introduce this small concept of mTOR. It is a protein kinase that controls protein synthesis. And when the mTOR activity in our body increases, it causes cell growth and proliferation, which leads to diseases and aging. While when it is decreased, it leads to repair and maintenance, autophagy, what she spoke about, and that leads to health and longevity. And what increases this activity is animal foods, which are high in amino acids, and what decreases is plant foods, which have limited amino acids, right? And this study showed that low protein, high carb diet plays a critical role in longevity and metabolic health, while intake of animal protein, particularly red meat, is related to promotion of age-related diseases. So the jury is still out on this. What I would say is that bare minimum, you have to take this much, 0.8. The max, which has been studied so far and recommended, is 1.6. That's the max that you should go for. So moderation is the key. What about incomplete? I said limited amino acids. So does that mean that plant proteins are incomplete? Because that is the thought that is there. Well, complete proteins are foods that contain all the 9 essential amino acids which the body cannot synthesize and have to be consumed via our diet. And animal proteins are said to be complete and plant proteins are said to be incomplete. Let us understand this. These are the 9 essential amino acids, and these are sources: meat, dairy, veggies, beans, grains, seeds, and nuts. If you look at the recommended intake that is required for a day, you will see that plants, first of all, have all essential amino acids. There is no plant source which doesn't have an amino acid at all. No. All plant sources have all amino acids. 7 of them, you will see, are fully adequate. 2 of these, methionine and lysine, are borderline. What does that mean? Veggies and beans have low methionine content, while grains, nuts, and seeds have low lysine content. So how much of a problem is that? There is the concept of limiting amino acid. You imagine a barrel, and the lowest one, this is where the water will start flowing from, correct? So for grains, nuts, and seeds, it's lysine. For veggies and beans, it is methionine, right? But if you see carefully, the grains, nuts, and seeds have high methionine, while veggies, beans have high lysine content. What does that mean? When you combine the two, then you are obviously ruling out that limiting amino acid problems, right? So now you have got the complete barrel here. And that is what we do. Dal, chawal, sabji, roti. In fact, the world over, traditional diets have evolved in such a way that they match each other and they complement each other. The other concept is that animal proteins have high quality, high biological value, while plant proteins are low quality and low biological value. And this is coming from these amino acid scores which are given, PDCASS, which has now been replaced by DIAAS, which is based on indispensable amino, the essential amino acid score. So if you look an amino acid score based on lysine content, then obviously your grains and your nuts and seeds will have low scores, while your veggies and legumes and animal proteins will have a high score, because now you're looking only at lysine. And we know that these are deficient in lysine. But what nobody will tell you is that multiple protein sources can be combined to increase the score. So we should not look at just one score and say, okay, this is bad, you can't have that. When you have it with something else which complements it, the score doesn't matter anymore. So to meet your amino acids, eat enough calories, eat whole foods, don't go for processed foods, and eat a variety of plant foods, right? So this is where the variety kicks in. So are proteins incomplete? No, they just complement each other. Is meat a better source of protein? Right? If you look at the RDA for individual amino acids, you will see that a single serving of chicken breast will give you 2 times the amino acids. Wow. And compare that with plant sources. Chickpeas and white rice combined will just about meet your amino acid requirement. So meat does give a lot more proteins. There's no doubt about it. But does that justify killing 100 billion innocent animals every year, which is what we are doing? Well, not really. Why? Because we need to look at the complete package. We are very focused on that protein, but we are missing out on bigger picture. Animal foods also give us saturated fats, trans fats, and cholesterol. Plus, they give us toxic and inflammatory products like heme iron, which have shown to increase the risk of colon cancer, cardiovascular disease, heterocyclic amines, which have shown to be neurotoxic, more prone for diabetes, carcinogenic, nitrosamines, which have been shown to be carcinogenic and teratogenic, neophygesis, which is known to contribute to inflammation, atherosclerosis, and cancer, and TMAO, which is known to show increased risk of mortality, other than many other factors, right? And India's, this is a warning which was given. The strongest antibiotics, colistin, is now being used rampantly in India's poultry industry because antibiotics are rampantly used in all animal products. And the biggest thing, there is zero fiber in animal products, right? And as Dr. Smriti said, in the US, 95% of the population is fiber deficient, right? So instead of asking where do you get your proteins, the question should be where do you get your fiber from? That is what you should be asking. And this was a beautiful nurses study which was done, which they checked the effect of dietary protein intake in midlife to healthy aging. They studied 11 major chronic diseases. So healthy aging was being free from all of them with no impairment in memory or physical function and being good in mental health. Look at all the diseases that they studied. Okay, this is a little bit complicated here, but let me simplify it here. Odds ratio, simply what you can understand here is if the value is 1, that means there is no effect, right? If the value is less than 1 in this case, it means it's bad, but if it's more than 1, then it is better for you. So if you look at the absence of chronic diseases, when you increase your total and animal protein intake, it is bad. But dairy and plant seems to show some benefit. If you look at no memory impairment, you will see that total animal and dairy product, as you go on increasing, you will have more memory impairment. But with plant-based protein increase, you will have less of that. And when you look at no physical limitations or good mental status, yes, everybody showed improvement, but see the amount. This is like 1% better, 1%. This is 16% better, this is 41% better. So see how much it is. They went a step further. What they did was, they replaced carbs with plant protein, they replaced fat with plant protein, they replaced animal protein and dairy protein with plant protein, and they said, okay, let's see what happens. You change the diet and do this. And they found everywhere, the moment you replace anything with plant protein, the benefits are very, very obvious. And the same thing when they did with animal and dairy product, they did not find any change. Okay? And if you look at all the guidelines, which Dr. Smriti also showed, world over, what are they saying? And these guidelines are based on huge meta-analysis. They're saying number of countries now recommend populations reduce their protein intake from animal-derived foods and switch to more plant-based alternatives. That is what the world over they are saying. That is plant-predominant dietary pattern. So is meat better source? No, it's a higher risk source, in fact, I would say. Finally, what does our future hold? Now, this was a paper which was published last year, and it said that if we continue to follow our current dietary pattern, by 2050 there will be millions underweight, obesity will rise to 70% more, and global warming will be out of control. And they said that if you change your diet, okay, then you can actually eradicate malnutrition, you can reverse obesity rate, and you can control global warming. And what was this change of diet? Strong consensus. Universal increase in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts, less consumption of ultra-processed foods, and animal source foods, consumption significantly reducing. right? So basically, whole food, plant-based diet. And this is their recommendation. See, this is the current trend of animal product intake. Everybody is eating more and more of animal products. This is what they recommend. If you look at vegetables and, it's not going anywhere, the graph. Nobody is consuming this. This is the recommendation. This is what we are supposed to do. And what will happen if we do that? This obesity line which is going there will suddenly start coming down. The premature mortality related to lifestyle diseases will automatically start coming down, right? And the reason is also for sustainable food future. If you compare the land use, freshwater use, and greenhouse gas emission per calorie or per gram of protein, you will see that the animal-based foods, pork, eggs, fish, poultry, dairy, beef, are always extensively environmentally draining. So only plant-based diet is actually sustainable for our future. So to summarize, it has been said by the Nutrition of Dietetics, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, that plant-based diets are nutritionally adequate, provide health benefits, they're appropriate for all stages of life cycle, okay? Infancy, pregnancy, lactation, you name it and it's appropriate. And of course, they are more environmentally sustainable. So we can get all proteins we need from a whole food plant-based diet without the damage caused by animal agriculture. Here's a small clipette, sorry.
ओहो दीपिका जी आइए आइए लीजिए आपका सब सामान तैयार
ये नहीं वो
होल फूड्स प्लांट बेस्ड डाइट
लेकिन आप तो वो हमेशा
प्रोटीन वाली
लेती थी
वही महंगी प्रोटीन वाली क्वालिटी वही हेल्थ वही टेस्ट कम डैमेज में मिले
तो कोई ये क्यों ले वो न ले
मान गए
किसे
आपकी पार की नजर और
प्लांट बेस्ड डाइट
दोनों को
अब प्लांट बेस्ड डाइट
हेल्थ का सुपर दम डैमेज फिर भी कम
That kind of sums about what I wanted to say. So how much ever protein one decides to take, if there's one message you want to take from this entire talk, is plant proteins are way, way better for us than animal proteins. That's the one thing that I want you to understand. And not only for our health, but also for conservation of water, forest, wildlife, the planet, our own children's future. And they are all filled with compassion towards the animals and peace towards the earthlings. We are what we eat. So let us eat the rainbow, not the moth. Thank you. Dr. Anuja. We have time?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Tell me, please, sir. Sorry, 1 minute. Can you have the mic?
All the time we are saying that plant-based food is better than animal food. Is there any study that those Brahmins, strict Brahmins, who have been taking only plant food for generations, are diseases less in them? We are making a picture that as if animal food is bad. See, it can be, there is no question. You have to change your lifestyle. Plant foods are also good. But it can be mix of both is also good. Is there any study that only taking plant food, as I said, in strict Brahmins, whether diseases are less? Has anybody done that study?
So, firstly, I would say strict Brahmins doesn't mean that they are not consuming meat, but they might be still consuming dairy and a lot of dairy products, right? So that is not the ideal group that if you want to compare what we call as a whole food plant-based diet. What most studies have done, they have compared vegan eating pattern, because vegan eating pattern excludes all animal products, including dairy. But vegan eating pattern still does not exclude processed foods. Okay? Even a vegan eating dietary pattern has shown that lifestyle diseases are less in them. But what we are saying is that it's not about just giving up animal proteins, it is consuming more and more of whole foods, plant-based diet. See, if you look at the maximum reason for deaths that was shown by both the speakers, it is a diet which is less in fruits and vegetables, a diet which is less in legumes. So what we are saying is you consume more and more of that. Automatically your animal food consumption will start going down. Even if you smoke 1 cigarette a week, probably nothing is going to happen. So in little amount, you may say nothing may be harmful. But the point is we have to increase the healthy product, the fiber that is required. If you don't have enough of that, then you are going to suffer. There are enough studies which say that.
Now again, blanket saying that, okay, increase fruit intake. Everybody should increase fruit intakes, etc. Again, that may not be a proper advice. For a diabetic, if you start saying 50% of your diet, as it was mentioned in earlier presentations, 50% of your intake can be fruits, or 5 fruits a day. Other than economics of it, 5 fruits, if you go on purchasing or eating per day, may not be an economical thing, because each fruit, even a piece, costs nowadays 50 rupees a piece. Okay, one part. Another part, fructose also is again converted to glucose. Followed. So for diabetics, half part of the fruits in your diet is going to increase your blood sugar a lot. So whenever you are trying to promote that fruit should be 50%, etc., please also see to it that the caveat is not for diabetics.
Yeah, so of course, we are not giving out blanket, just blindly follow, that doesn't work. What we are saying, what the guidelines are providing and what is the way forward. Specific individual cases, of course, we will have to modify accordingly.
It should be mentioned particularly.
Yes, of course.
See, because whenever such type of topics are discussed in the papers or in your media, it is when this particular sentence is done, even a diabetic will start using or eating 50% of their diet as a fruit.
Well, see, fruits in diabetics can be a different topic altogether. And there is enough evidence coming that, in fact, increasing fruits may also not be bad for the diabetics. But that is not something that we can take here, because this is not the right forum for that. It requires a lot of more, and we are not having those studies to show you right now.
That's right.
So we will take this further on panel discussion.
No, so don't do the discussion.
Madam, can we do this in panel?
Even if we say 5 servings of the raw fruit and vegetables, they've now specified it to as 2 fruits component, even for children, leave alone the diabetics. 2 of fruits and 3 servings of vegetables. So there is some misunderstanding about increasing only fruits for 50% of the plate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome. So we are going to have talks on that as well. In diabetics, what should be the diet and everything in the second session. So we will take all these questions when the things are added, because otherwise it will be a repetition.
Thank you, Dr. Sharan. Thank you, audience, for the questions. We always keep thinking, food is all the time on our mind, and rightfully so. Among the 6 pillars, the first is always food. For healthy life, in lifestyle medicine, or generally for good health. But let us take a little breather and let us look at the other pillars as well, because we can't just keep focusing on and we can't just keep focusing on one pillar and ignore the other. So let us look a little bit on the other pillars. So So let's just take questions first. According to Fit India Initiative and WHO guidelines, what is the recommendation for physical activity for ages 6 to 17 years? Hand raises, please. Yes, ma'am. Yellow sari. A. Anyone else? Yes. Okay, now just last, I'll take an option. Okay. So you received 1 prize, right? Yeah, you can. Let me just try someone else. Ma'am in pink. Okay, now last. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. For children, it is 60 minutes of physical activity, moderate to vigorous physical activity, and out of that, at least 3 days, it should be vigorous physical activity. So our kids are really, very, very inadequate physical activity. Now, how do we understand moderate physical activity and vigorous physical activity? It depends on the percentage of the maximum heart rate. But to make it simple, we can understand that a moderate intensity activity is where the person can talk in sentences but cannot sing. And a vigorous activity is where the person is not able to talk in complete sentences. Okay, that person has to become that breathless. Next question. What does MBSR mean? Anyone else? Just few hands. Yes, ma'am. Twisha, ma'am? Yeah. Okay, anyone else has another answer? Yes, yellow? Yellow, ma'am? See, mindful biological sleep routine. Okay. Anyone has any other answers? Okay, let's see the answer. It's yes, Twisha ma'am, you're right. Mindfulness-based stress reduction. It is a method designed by John Kabat-Zinn. We'll just look into it briefly, but it is a very, very important stress management strategy. So we can have 2 names duplicated for the prize, and then we can decide whether we want to give 2. Okay, the last question. Master clock of the body is located where? Periventricular nucleus, paraventricular, suprachiasmatic, supraoptic. Yes, ma'am. Brown. Suprachiasmatic, that's right. Your name, please, ma'am? Dr. Shikha Manali. Okay, so that is the master circadian clock in our hypothalamus. It operates both as an oscillator as well as a pacemaker, and it serves as a control for sleep and arousal. So then coming to today's topic, exercise, sleep, and stress management. Looking at exercise, we all know there are 4 types of exercise. One is aerobic or endurance exercise, which we all know as cardio. Next is strength training or resistant exercises. Then flexibility, and finally balance exercises. Now let us look at each one of them and how they are beneficial. So aerobic or endurance exercises can be anything of these. It can be running, jogging, it can be brisk walking, it can be rowing, swimming, water aerobics, jump rope, cycling, trekking, dance, Zumba. A lot of these activities which make your heart beat faster, your breath rate increases, are cardio exercises. And how are they beneficial? We now know that they lower all-cause mortality. They also reduce incidence of mortality related to cardiovascular disease. And they increase the bone mineral density, and they also help reduce the fat percentage. They improve insulin sensitivity. Cardio exercises are very, very important for improving insulin sensitivity. They also have an impact on mood and cognition, and they also reduce risk of many cancers. Strength training is also equally important, and most of the times this is ignored. People say, I just walk, I don't do anything else, I don't want to bulk up. Okay, so that's a very, very common but misconception about strength training. And strength training is not just lifting weights, it is also your body weight exercises such as lunges, squats, even burpees, where you are only lifting your own body weight. It can be using free weights like your dumbbells and barbells. It can be the machines that we see in the gym. It can be resistance bands as well. We get those in different resistance levels, and they are beautiful equipment to work out on anywhere, actually. And there is something called plyometrics, which is usually reserved for elite athletes, where they do strength training along with a lot of agility training to increase speed. And what is the importance of strength training? It is helpful in increasing lean body mass and muscle strength. It makes the bones stronger. So very, very important for peri and postmenopausal women, but even for men, because Indians, we'll see later, are very, very sedentary. It also improves insulin sensitivity, improves the mood, it reduces risk of injuries, and improves quality of life. Especially important for elderly, because if you can do your activities of daily living with ease, if you have that strength in your muscles and your joints and bones, you are much happier, you are much more independent. It also increases the basal metabolic rate, it reduces fatigue and also improves sleep. So resistance exercises also become very important. Coming to flexibility, a lot of examples, yoga, Pilates and Tai Chi all focus on improving the flexibility of the joint and the stretching of the muscle. And why they are important? Because they have a lot of benefit. They increase the muscle length and the range of motion. They also align the collagen fibers, which is important in healing. There was one study conducted on elderly living in a community setting, and they found that daily hip flexor stretching in elderly improved their gait. And this had an improvement in the walking speed as well as the stride length. So just daily hip stretching made such an impact on the gait, and which is a very, very important factor for quality of living for the elderly population. There is also a positive effect on recovery from injuries, from soreness, but most of the studies show a non-statistical difference. Probably because the injuries are multifactorial in nature, and you really cannot kind of quantify the intensity of stretching. You cannot prescribe a certain intensity of stretching to a patient. So because of this, they are not able to have a statistical significance, but flexibility training exercises definitely help us. Coming to balance, maintaining the body's equilibrium while in stationary or in motion is very, very important. And a lot of exercises which can train that, just simply walking backwards, standing on one leg, a lot of asanas in yoga will have that. Using a wobble board or a Bosu ball or even an exercise ball. So yoga and Tai Chi will definitely improve the balance as well. And balance exercises are very important for fall prevention, becomes most important for the elderly population. And one systematic review has found that in the elderly population, just by giving a structured exercise program with balance exercises, they found there is a decrease in the injuries from falls and also decrease in the severe injuries as well as fractures because of falls. And as we all know, just one fall and the confidence of that individual reduces to a huge extent. The first fall itself can be prevented by staying physically active all through, right from our young age to the middle age and continuing into the old age. And that is why exercise is very important. It's physical inactivity is the fourth leading cause of global mortality. You know, it's fourth only to high blood pressure, high blood glucose, and tobacco usage. 7% of all cause mortality is due to physical inactivity, and 8% of non-communicable diseases are due to physical inactivity. Worldwide, if we reduced physical inactivity by 25%, so just 25% more people started becoming more active, we would be able to reduce 1.3 billion deaths every year. That's the importance. And there was one study which compared years of life lost in individuals having certain criteria. So they saw obese class 2 people who were physically active, and they lost 4.5 years of life. Whereas people who were thin or normal weight and they were not physically active lost 4.7 years of life, a little more. So it doesn't matter what your weight category is, whether you are underweight, normal weight, overweight, obese, whichever class. It definitely is helpful when you are physically active. So all of us need to, some people may have that, tendency, our patients may believe that I'm thin, I don't need to put in any exercise at all, but that's not true. Everyone needs exercise. So that's the chart which showed the leading causes. So physical inactivity is among the top 4, the fourth one. And along with exercise for that particular small time of the day, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, being active in the rest of the day is also very, very important. So sedentary behavior or just sitting. So most of us in our clinics, we are sitting, we are just getting up to see the patient. Again, we are sitting, we are counseling, we are talking, we are in the car, we are, moving around, but we are not really walking. We are just in the car or the clinic. So that's kind of sedentary behavior. Most of the office goers, sedentary behavior. So it's very, very important to be active for the rest of the day, because just sitting or sedentary behavior has shown an effect on the disease risk. And sitting is the new smoking. So we need to sit as less as possible. So I was just comparing the physical inactivity levels, and that is the data I found. Indians are 45.4% of them are physically inactive. Americans more than us. And when we compare that to smoking and tobacco, Indians are nearly equal, or physical inactivity is slightly more than our tobacco usage. Again, they compared TV watching in a person who was regularly exercising 1 hour every day, all days of the week. And they found that this person had the same mortality as a group with no TV watching and no exercise. So if you see, if you're exercising, but yet the rest of the day you're sitting in the clinic, and then, I used to do that, I still do it sometimes, then you want to just relax and enjoy, so you binge on screen, on Netflix or whatever. So that TV watching itself is adding on to our mortality. So along with the exercise, it's important to be physically active, moving around throughout the day. And these are the guidelines. So for adults, at least 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous physical activity. And now, obviously, this has to be individualized as per the tolerance. So not everyone can start directly. Someone who is absolutely sedentary, not working out at all, no moving around, no walking, will have to gradually build that up. Definitely 3 times per week of balance exercises for all the adults, 2 times a week minimum of resistance training, and 2 times per week of flexibility. So it can be a mix and match of all the 4 types of exercises every day. So you end up having at least 150 minutes of physical activity per week. For children, it is even more. It is 60 minutes or more every day. And at least 3 of these days should be vigorous intensity. Below 6 years, of course, it is free play. But after 6 years, it has to be a structured, vigorous physical activity, moderate to vigorous. And we have to reduce our sedentary time. 5-minute movement breaks every 50 to 60 minutes is very, very important. We can take the stairs wherever possible. We can park our cars further away. We can walk as much as possible and move around. So with that, this was just an overview of exercise. I just want to sensitize so that we start implementing this in our own lives and start promoting it to our patients, whatever may be the fitness level of the patient. Of course, we need to take help of fitness and exercise specialists, and because we are the people who are the traffic signal cops, but we are the ones who are going to guide them in the appropriate direction. Coming to sleep. Now, sleep can be described in many ways. It is how much a person sleeps, that is the duration, when a person slept, the actual timing, and how well a person slept, that is the quality of the sleep. So all these 3 factors are very important, and they can affect health as well as chronic diseases. There are some sleep statistics here. India sleeps average 6.9 hours per day, which is lesser than the recommendation. For adults, it is at least 7 to 8 or even 7 to 9 hours per day. One study has put the percentage of insomnia to be as high as 33% in India. And there are a lot of indirect costs of insomnia. And one of it is presenteeism. That is, the person is present at work but is not productive enough. Next is an increased risk of obviously long-term disability. And there may be an increased risk of mistakes, errors, and also accidents when a person is sleep deprived. And the number of people with inadequate sleep are rising worldwide. Now this is a guidepost, basically a quick guidance for how much sleep everyone needs. So newborns and infants need a lot of sleep. Most of the times a newborn is sleeping. And as the child grows older, the requirement of sleep reduces. But it is still higher than adults, even in adolescents. So we see a lot of adolescents who are sleep deprived, and they don't realize that because they are all the time on the screen. And they really require 9 to 10 hours of sleep. And an adult requires 7 to 9 hours. There are some beliefs around sleep which make us feel proud when we can function with less sleep. So it is, some people may feel it is an inconvenience, waste of time, and it is associated. Some people feel that working on less sleep is associated with, strength, a positive aspect of productivity. Some might find challenges. So early morning or late at night is the only time when one can do some focused work. So then you have to be awake at that time. Some doctors, most people work in, some people work in shift hours. The global economies these days demand 24/7 work expectation. So if my office is, working with UK, then I have to follow that timing. So it doesn't take into consideration the current clock, and my biological clock gets confused. And of course, there is binge watching, because the Netflix CEOs once asked, what is your biggest competition according to you? And you know what the answer was? The answer was people's sleep. It wasn't any other OTT platform, but it was people's sleep. The more people sleep, the lesser they will watch our channel. So we need to also understand what sleep does to us. So sleep is very important for overall productivity. Sleep deficiency impairs the overall functioning, and the individual is many times unaware that the functioning can improve. So the person only realizes when the person starts sleeping better, and then the productivity improves, the mood improves, and then in retrospect, the person will realize, okay, I was not functioning optimally, now I can do much better. Impaired sleep has negative effect on all the systems: cardiovascular health, metabolic health, on mood, cognition, learning, even emotional health. Impaired sleep causes melatonin suppression, and that also leads to immune suppression. And sleep disruption is also correlated to a number of cancers. So let us look at the circadian physiology. Like we saw in the questions, and every one of us knows, suprachiasmatic nucleus is the master clock. Now this nucleus is entrained by internal and external stimuli that are called ZGBers, and light is the most potent ZGber. So during daytime, because we are exposed to light, the melatonin is suppressed. At night time, when the light levels drop, our brain starts, the suprachiasmatic nucleus will stimulate the pineal gland to cause melatonin, and then the further cycle starts. Now this master clock is also coordinating with the peripheral clocks in our body, and each of our cells has a peripheral clock, and these are oscillators. Now what they do is the peripheral clocks are trained by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and all of them together form a synchrony, and this synchrony of our internal clock with the external clock leads to homeostasis, or it promotes wellness or good health. Now when there is asynchrony there, that is my sleep time has come but it is still bright outside, or it has become dark outside but my body is still not going to sleep. When this asynchrony happens, it is called jet lag, when it is because of travel, because of changing time zones. But when it is happening voluntarily, like how we all are doing many a times, it is called social jet lag. And both are deleterious to our health. This is a very beautiful pictorial depiction of how the entire circadian rhythm works. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus will stimulate the pineal gland. It will also trigger the pituitary gland to kind of secrete all its important hormones, which will have effect on each and every system on our body. And the figures on the right will also show us how our metabolism changes from daytime to nighttime. And it is worth noting that, see, look at the fat metabolism. It is lipogenesis in the daytime, but it is lipid catabolism in nighttime. So a person who's sleeping well will have a better fat metabolism. It also has leptin secretion. So nighttime sleep is very important for adequate leptin secretion. And leptin, as we all know, is the satiety hormone. So if we have leptin levels which are inadequate, the next day we are going to have a lot of food-seeking behavior. And that is not good for our overall health. So what does good sleep do to our cardiovascular system? A good sleep will lower the sympathetic tone. It will reduce the BP or normalize the BP. A greater nighttime peripheral perfusion, so all our organs are better perfused. And ultimately it will lead to an increased stamina and faster recovery time. It also has an impact on our hormones. It will lower the cortisol and the glucose levels. It will improve our insulin sensitivity. And a higher daytime leptin level will reduce food-seeking behavior. Now let us look at the negative effects of a sleep deprivation that can have on our system. So poor sleep can have higher nighttime cortisol. So there is no drop in the cortisol. There is reduced insulin sensitivity, lower daytime leptin, and that correlates with elevated BMI, type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, also reduced growth hormone because of poor sleep. And on the cardiovascular system also, it has an impact on the sympathetic tone. It will increase risk of endothelial injury, which is the start point for all the inflammatory cascade and the other things that we see in the form of atherosclerosis and the further sequence. It leads to dyslipidemias, elevated BP at night, the regular BP which usually should drop at night, that drop is less prominent or it is absent in people who do not sleep. And that is why we have an increased risk of heart attacks and cardiovascular disease deaths around that time. Poor sleep will also have an impact on our mood and cognition. So less REM sleep will lead to poor learning, poor memory. And what are our adolescents doing? Our older kids doing? They are not really sleeping that well. Reduced brain-derived neurotropic factor will help, actually BDNF will help in repair and regeneration, but that is also not produced adequately when you're sleep deprived. And the sleep deprivation will also impair the moral judgment, and there will be a misinterpretation of a lot of social cues. Again, will add on to a lot of stress. Short sleep is also associated with major depression, bipolar disorders, seasonal affective disorders, even premenstrual syndrome, which we see so commonly among young girls as well as older women these days. Any PTSD will be worse if that person undergoing the trauma is sleep deprived. Even in traumatic brain injury, the person who undergoes that injury recovers much later if that person is already sleep deprived. Poor sleep also has an impact on cellular health. Individually, each and every cell in our body, the DNA repair and the histone modification is done properly when the sleep duration and the quality is healthy. Good sleep also helps in apoptosis and anti-cancer cytokines, which are maintained. But when there is sleep deprivation, what happens? There is melatonin suppression, and there is increased activity of cancer-stimulating cytokines. There is dysfunction in the gene transcription and the cell cycle, and this ultimately leads to aberrant DNA methylation and increased risk of cancers. So with that overview, there are a lot of reasons and a lot of problems where the sleep can be disturbed. But we as doctors, we just need to find out that from our patients and kind of guide them appropriately to specialists, or to some extent we can guide for the initial part. And for us, for our personal health, we need to make sure that we are managing our sleep well. Now coming to stress management. So there are three types of stresses. One is eustress, a good stress that is motivating or inspiring. Something called new stress, which is a situation which is perceived as inconsequential. And distress is the bad kind of stress, where the information is perceived as threatening. And this threatening information is going to stimulate a further cascade in our body. There are two types of bad stress, acute and chronic. So acute is short-term, comes on intensely, but may disappear quickly. So sometimes this is beneficial, like the fight and flight. But chronic stress or long-term stress is the main culprit. It comes intensely, or sometimes it doesn't come intensely, it comes very slowly, but it persists, it lingers, and the body is in the perpetually aroused or hyper-alert state. The body feels it is all the time in danger. So any situation, circumstance, or stimulus that is perceived as a threat is called a stressor. Now, stressors can be of multiple types. Psychological stressors, our own thoughts, our beliefs, our perceptions itself can be a stressor for us. Physiological stressors, obviously, illness, infection, disease, hunger. Social stressors, any major life changes, any personal conflicts that a person can undergo. Financial insecurity is a stressor. And bioecological stressors such as the weather, the pollution, our food additives, the chemicals in our surroundings. So all these stressors will add on to the stress. Adverse childhood experiences are also the potential traumatic events that the person has undergone as a child below 18 years of age. And according to CDC, 6 out of 10 adults have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience. And this can be child abuse, child neglect, violence in the family, a family member attempting or actually dying of suicide, a household with substance abuse, a household with mental health problems, or an unstable household. So all these can have an impact on the child's development. And these adverse childhood experiences, when the person grows to become an adult, along with the psychological distress the adult may face, with a lot of socio-economic factors involved, can ultimately lead to stress in the adult life. And what are the effects of stress? The stress will trigger the HPA axis, the hypothalamo-pituitary-adrenal axis, and there will be release of epinephrine, norepinephrine, but also cortisol. And a lot of stress-related symptoms will come up, which can have a lot of overlap with a lot of other systems. So anxiety, palpitation, sweating, fatigue, appetite changes, low appetite as well as excess appetite, dizziness, headache, sleep disturbances, gut disturbances, even unusual emotional feelings can be attributed to stress. The sympathetic overdrive also leads to impaired immune function. It leads to inflammation. Stress causes our body to have chronic inflammation. There is increased abdominal fat deposition, insulin resistance. There is increased tendency of blood clotting, impaired wound healing. There is poor sleep, poor mood, poor memory. There is decreased bone density, and there is decreased longevity as well, because a constant stress in the body will lead to shortening of the telomeres, and these are ultimately responsible for longevity. So how do we manage stress? So there are multiple ways. We just need to actually pause and think what way is suitable for us. Each one has to decide for themselves. It can be breathing tools. It can be movement, exercise, yoga, tai chi, qigong. All of these are brilliant tools to manage your stress. It is not that the stress will go away, but we are equipped better to handle our stress. Meditation is a very beautiful technique, but we need to practice it. Meditation is practice. It is not just a one-time thing. Reading, listening to music, a nice massage can be, responsible for feeling relaxed and manage stress. Any form of self-expression, whatever is our hobby, playing a musical instrument, singing, dancing, creating some sort of art will also be helpful. And again, getting involved in the community, volunteering for meaningful causes, being with family, friends, and also finding what activities give us pleasure. It can be spiritual, it can be religious activity, it can be some social activity. So finding our own ways to manage stress is very, very important, and picking that up in our patients and kind of nudging them gradually, giving them insight is more important. Now coming to mindfulness-based stress reduction. Mindfulness means paying attention on purpose to what you are thinking and feeling. It is being fully present. It is being aware of the surroundings. So it is not being judgmental. It is not trying to interpret everything. It is just being there and understanding the situation as it is, taking it as it is. Formal mindfulness is meditation, of course, which requires a persistent practice. It doesn't happen in many sessions as well, but continuous practice and it happens. But we can be mindful at a lot of other times. This is called informal mindfulness. It is being attentive to the routine activities. Many times we are in the kitchen doing work, or we are doing routine things. We are in the clinic with routine patients, and our mind is constantly in overdrive. We are thinking maybe ahead, we are planning something later in the day, or we are thinking back of something that has happened to us in the past. And we are not in the present. Our body is mechanically doing the things it is supposed to do reflexly because we are used to it, but our mind is not there. So mindfulness is exactly trying to bring our mind back to what we are actually doing. It can be as simple as chopping or washing our hands or doing routine chores in the house, or just being there present in the clinic with the patient and just trying to non-judgmentally analyze. So this also needs practice, but we can do it, know more about it once we know that this can be done. There is neuroscience and MBSR. So neuroscience also shows that there is neuroplasticity. Even adults can grow about 700 new neurons a day. The brain learns, adapts, and restructures based on our thoughts, our attitudes, our perceptions, and our emotional experiences. Conscious thought can actually retrain and shape the brain and emotional traits. There was this study that was conducted, 8 weeks of mindfulness training, and they found that the prefrontal cortex thickness increased. The prefrontal cortex is the center of our cognition. That thickness increased. There was increased gray matter density in the hippocampus, which is important for learning and new memory formation. It helps in emotional regulation, in forming a good perspective and self-awareness. Reduced gray matter in the amygdala. Amygdala is the primitive center, and when the reduced gray matter density in amygdala translates to reduction in anxiety, stress, and negative thoughts. Also, the 8 weeks of mindfulness training promoted stronger connections between the prefrontal cortex, that is the new brain, with the primitive brain, the amygdala. And this translated to better problem solving and modulating emotional responses. So just by being mindful, we can actually change the structure of our brain. And we just need to actually do it to experience the benefits. And how can mindfulness help clinicians? It helps reduce rumination. It improves memory. It helps sustain attention. Many a times what happens in the clinic, in the busy OPD, you are already, your mind is partly elsewhere and the patient is constantly telling something and we interrupt the patient and we like, okay, just give me the bare facts and I just want to finish off the patient. This approach will gradually change once you are more mindful. You have improved ability to deal with any sort of conflict. There is improved mental well-being, calmness, clarity, concentration. You know, our counseling skills, our compassion, our patience with the patient will improve if we are mindful ourselves. And overall, this will translate to an improved quality of life and decrease psychological stress because we'll be more happy out of the output at the end of the clinic. And that is what we want because we as clinicians, we are all the time pouring out of our cups for patients, you know. We are giving a piece of ourselves to all our patients. But if we don't replenish our cup, we can't pour from an empty cup. So it is important for all of us as doctors to, you know, kind of take care of ourselves in the form of exercise, sleep, stress management, and then translate this benefit to our patients. So with that, I will finish. Thank you so much.